All right, we're live.
Okay. Why this one?
Food 98.1, the best combination of radio and coffee. The Smooth Breakfast presents the headline, the story, the news, in-depth analysis of national current affairs. Freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1.
Love music, love life. It's now 31 minutes past 7 o'clock, and you are welcome to Freshly Pressed. Every weekday from 7:30 right here on Smooth Breakfast. What we do is an in-depth analysis of the news and the national headlines coming from the dailies. And you're welcome to join us and be a part of the conversation. We have the WhatsApp line, which is 0809 444 0981. If you're sending a message for the first time, please include your name and your location. And you can also join us on YouTube. We are live at Smooth 981 FM Lagos, at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. And let's get started with today. Of course, as an analyst on Wednesday, I do have joining me, Devoe Okorie. Good morning.
Morning, world. Morning, Lagos. New day in a new week. Instead of a cool Ramadan, it's better said Ramadan Kareem.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's Wednesday, hump of the week. The week is almost done. I don't know about the newness of the week. Well, we move on with the story, or we get started with the story coming from Punch. And this is coming from the Katsina state government defending its decision to close schools during the holy month of Ramadan and saying that it has put measures in place to ensure minimal academic disruption. Devoe.
Yes, I think this is one of the stories this week that has really bothered uh, many and has gotten some level of national attention about four northern states, at least as of the last count, Bauchi, Kebbi, Castina, I can't remember the last states, have called for a 1 month lockdown or shutdown of primary and secondary schools, both in public and private schools during the Ramadan season. The state government has said that to enable students participate in the Ramadan fast. Now, there's been a lot of outrage from Parent Teachers Association, from Christian Association of Nigeria, the National Association of Private School Proprietors, which they've all said that the move by the government, by the state government, is unjustifiable. However, Muric also, in their own response, said that each of the states should be given their rights to do what they want, since the majority of the students are Muslim. However, despite this kickback, the state governments have come back to say that they're not going back on their um, instruction, and that it was done with the collective discussions with parents, teachers, and various stakeholders. And that is where I have my issue, because already we know that it's going to disrupt the school timing. These students will lose about 1 month, both primary and secondary. Um, the state government says yes, about 2 weeks are going to be lost, but they're looking for ways to, push that back into the school calendar. And you know the way the school calendar works. It's not one, nobody runs on a separate calendar. It's one calendar literally for the whole country. Now, um, my issue here is many of these state governors who are now championing their Ministry of Education or commissions of education experience proper training and education in their own time. Even some of them have their own children abroad. And you really wonder, why are they now politicizing education? Why are they interfering in the name of religion? In countries that we even borrow or take example from in terms of Islamic worship, like Saudi Arabia and Dubai, that's the United Arab Emirates, they don't shut down their schools. What they do is that they have reduced school time, meaning students who participate in Ramadan might be asked to close from 12 or resume late. Even in professional organizations, most times work must still go on during the Ramadan season. So what happens is that some professional organizations accommodate them by allowing for reduced work hours for those who are fasting. So I really don't understand why these state governments have decided to take this move, especially given the fact that some of the states involved here, like Castina, Kebbi, uh,
Kano.
Bauchi, Kano, they are the most educationally impoverished states. Okay, impoverished meaning there's high level of illiteracy, there's high level of out of school children. I mean, we're doing everything to see how we can get these people back in school so that they can become productive citizens of the country or their states. But here we are, and the state is looking for an opportunity to interfere or to politicize a religious practice. So I honestly, I shouldn't even be the one speaking. I want to hear from the residents of some of these states, from the media should actually find out and interrogate what are the citizens of these states, because the states are the ones carrying this out. What are they saying about the move made by their state governments?
Before we leave that story, there's something that the government said, the state government, they said that they have designed special extra lessons for the senior secondary certificate examination candidates in public, in private, as well as community schools. And they said that they are also ensuring some other extra measures in place. Do you think this holds any water, or it's going to
Well,
compensate at all?
extra lessons. I mean, lessons are not more than an hour or two in a day. Um, if you were going to design extra lessons, why didn't you just leave the schools open? Worst case scenario, you shorten the hours. So I really think they didn't give it proper review and training. There are enough examples or templates for even if these state governments wanted to give some larger than life consideration for Muslim students who are participating. By the way, even though the majority of citizens are Muslim, it doesn't mean that everybody there is a Muslim. So, like I said, there are examples of how this is done in other countries where there are fully Islamic states. I think that's the example that the state governments should have followed. These states need all the educational supports that they can so that they can become productive, not by interfering.
Thank you. Join the conversation by sending your WhatsApp messages to 0809 444 0981. Again, 0809 444 0981. You can also join us on YouTube at Smooth 981 FM Lagos, at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Let's move on to this story from Guardian. Technology key to enhancing security in correctional facilities. And this is coming from the Executive Director of the Prisons Fellowship Nigeria, Dr. Jacob Sado.
So could you read that again?
All right. So according to the Executive Director of the Prisons Fellowship of Nigeria, Dr. Jacob Sado, he said and stressed the importance of technology in improving security and efficiency in correctional centers, that the current manual systems were inadequate and that things could be better improved through technology. I guess. All right, then. So you'd have to exit that one. Thank you for joining us in the studio, Devoe. So yes. Let's go.
So for prisons, I think the right attention has been given to prisons. I had my own experience of prison some years ago. So I think I'm speaking authoritatively when I say Nigerian prisons are worse than hell holes. Okay? You don't have to die and go to hell. All you need to do is visit a Nigerian prison. In this article, the president of the, I think the prisons fellowship, Nigeria, was speaking that the government should, deploy technology to support prison administration, which, I mean, is a rightful statement to make. However, this is going to cost money. Anywhere you digitize operations, etc., it's going to cost a lot of money. Now, I would first say that, is that the right application? Meaning, is that if prisons were even given, as the Nigerian correctional centers, if they were given more budgets, should the right application be to using them for operational activities? I would employ and encourage as many citizens listening. You don't have to be a prisoner before you go to a prison. Do take time and visit the various Nigerian prisons. There are about 300 of them scattered around Nigeria in different locations. Go and visit them. Why am I saying this? Prisons, the Nigerian Correctional Center, the name was changed to show the new objective of how our prisons should not be places where we just throw criminals into to go and die and be of no use to society. Remember, prison tenures can be as low as 2 weeks. They can be as high as life sentence, okay, 20 years and above. Now, the idea is that while they're serving their sentence, they are also finding ways to rehabilitate their minds and their skills and the opportunities so that when they come out of prison, they're of useful productivity to society. However, what must be said is that right now, there are about 80,000 inmates in Nigeria, scattered around Nigeria, okay? Of which 70%, which is over 50,000, that's about 55,000 of those inmates are awaiting trial. Sharon, do you know what that means? Awaiting trial simply means that pending the court addressing my matter, I'm being held under detention. And some are therefore, as some are awaiting trial beyond 5 years, meaning nobody has gotten to the, they've not even tried their case, yet they've been asked to stay in prisons, lounging away. Meaning our prisons should not be overcongested. I would even say that if they had extra budgets, instead of using it for technology, if it means employing specific judges, okay, or courts that would deal to decongest our prisons nationwide, that is what should be done. It is a shame. And there's a budget that goes to keeping prisoners fed, right? I think they give them about, I think the last time I heard it was about 3,000 naira per day. And on top of that 3,000 naira per day, they're fed very, very rubbish food. You have your own money. You're going to actually starve in prison. That's how bad our prisons are. Why can't we? Because the people who are in prison are not monsters, or sorry, they're not animals. They're human beings. They're still citizens of the country. They have rights. They're only serving a sentence. That is if they are. And currently, only about 20 to 30,000 are actually the ones serving. So the bulk of them are awaiting trial. I think it's a blemish on our judicial system that needs to be addressed. If there's any extra budgets, I think the legal, there are many NGOs, many high-powered, what do you call them, legal companies that can support the federal government in having, just like you have tribunals for elections, can we have a special court that is set aside to go from prison to prison and address the awaiting trial matters? I mean, it's just complete wickedness on behalf of the Nigerian people to believe that we can just keep human beings in prison for years awaiting trial and nobody ever addresses or even gets across to them. Like I've said, you don't need to be a prisoner to go to a prison. You're entitled to visit. Please make your way to a prison and see it for yourself how bad our Nigerian correctional centers are.
I wonder if you saw the look at it when you said that 3,000 naira was allocated to their feeding per day.
Yes.
Well, that is the amount that is allocated to the feeding of the Nigerian soldiers. The one allocated to that of the inmates or the prisoners that we have in Nigerian correctional facilities, as at 2023, it was 750 naira. And 800 naira was allocated to the feeding of the service dogs. But then it was increased by 50%. So it is not up to 2,000. And that is just sad. Well, we'll move on to the other stories. By the way, you can come in and join with your thoughts by sending a message to WhatsApp. That is 0809 444 0981. Again, 0809 444 0981. I'll quickly take some messages before we go on to the next story. Oluwaseun on WhatsApp says, Good morning. Come on now. You guys should know Nigerian politicians don't have anything to offer their people. All they have is playing on the emotions of ignorant Nigerians through ethnicity and religion. That's why they spend that much sponsoring Hajj and journeys to Jerusalem. They have to play politics like this to win elections. The fight on Twitter between the two predominant southern ethnic groups is a part of these divisive tendencies of Nigerian politicians. Yinka from Mikotun says, Good morning, Devoe. Hope you're great. You're breathing heavily. Want you to continue to be sound, though. Well, thank you. Tonye from the Lagos Metropolis says, Good morning, freshly pressed crew. Where is the funding for the extra lessons for the students from the 4 states coming from? Was it in the approved state's budget? The sooner all of us realize that Nigeria is not a real place, the easier it will be to accept these absolutely ridiculous situations that have become commonplace in this society. And then, I don't know your name, but you said employ more judges, you say. When a certain comment was made about lack of enough prisoners to work and labor externally, that state will never decongest its prison ever again. Ebilade Ambo from Badagry says, there is nothing the governors would do to save face. Their decision to keep children after school during Ramadan is disgraceful and hypothetical. Their children's schools abroad where schools are not closed for Ramadan. I expect one of the parents to sue the governor or commissioner of education of one of the affected states. You can keep the messages coming to WhatsApp 0809 444 0981. Let's talk about this news of former Akwa Ibom governor Udom Emmanuel being put in EFCC custody for alleged 700 billion naira fraud.
Yes. I checked on X or Twitter this morning and I saw 700 billion. I really wondered what it meant. Well, here's another case of alleged corruption. Okay. We use alleged corruption because the Network Against Corruption and Trafficking, NCAT, did lay the petition to the EFCC, who have started investigating. So in that instance, as the story says, they invited the governor, the ex-governor, Udom Emmanuel. He came, and I think during their conversations, he was arrested right after. Now, the point is this. What they've said is that the petition speaks to the fact, or their investigations have revealed that about 31 billion naira in cash was withdrawn from a single account named the Office of the Governor, okay? This money was drawn progressively between 2019 and 2023, and that the petitioner alleged that the ex-governor received about 3 trillion from the Federation account over his 8-year tenure, okay? Because he served 2 terms, and that he left a debt profile of about 500 billion, unpaid ongoing projects worth about 300 billion, that's 800, keep counting, and he is accused of failing to account for 700 billion. So that's about 8 plus 7, that's about 1.5 trillion in question. Now, you see, my issue here is that, of course, the norm with legal issues in Nigeria is that you are not guilty until the case is proven. Okay? Now, the EFCC is actually meant to look at issues like this, but we have a history of EFCC political cases with high, we call them high exposed political entities, governors, DGs, ministers, in a long history in this country. And we've never really, I mean, it's in rare occasions that the government actually convicts anyone. I mean, some have said that the 80 billion corruption case against the ex-governor of Kogi State, Yaya Bello, is still ongoing. And we still see him parading himself in a dignified manner. And it took so long. You saw the drama that went on with his. Now we're discussing 700 billion. How far will they actually get? the issue with the ex Delta State governor that they said about 1 point something trillion wasn't accounted for. We still haven't gotten to the bottom of that case because most times what we hear is some of the ex-staff, ex-members of government coming out to say, well, that money was used for so and so projects, etc. I really would like to see the EFCC expedite some of these investigations, come out with somebody's, find a rat somewhere. Because what happens is that what people don't know and what people don't account for is that, is Nigeria truly a poor nation? If the money that Nigeria makes in terms, even though we are to where we are with a GDP of about 350 billion, right? With government spending, it's been around that 20 trillion to about 50 trillion as we are currently. With the little money that Nigeria has that money been spent as and when due? Okay? If you do your checks, you will see that a lot of government money is misappropriated. Now, the money that is misappropriated, if you calculate it, you will then see why we don't have sufficient schools, why we don't have functional hospitals, why we don't have adequate roads that are properly maintained, why we don't have all the social infrastructure that exists in foreign countries, advanced countries here. So it's not as if we couldn't, but it was corruption. It found its way into several pockets. That's why you see, what do you call them? Unexplained wealth taking place. A few people seem to have all the money. So, but the point is, how come the organs of government are never able? All they simply do is, I'm sure this case, we're going to see this case go on for the next 2 to 3 years before we even get to a point of them saying, okay, well, it's like this. Remember, the ex-governor was a former banker. So one really wonders, was he going to be careless at the end of the day? We expect the EFCC to do their work. And if this administration, that's the Bola Ahmed Shetima administration, is ever going to prove their mettle, they are going to have to start plugging and fishing out the rats, in quotes, that have been eating state government money, that have been eating the federal government money, that have been stealing our crude, that have been eating the subsidy money, that have been eating, all the various MDAs that tell you that snakes, giraffes, and orangutans have been eating the money. We need to see these orangutans. I would be happy if they could arrest an elephant that ate the state government money and puts that elephant inside the prison. Or show me the how do you call it? The bushfowl that ate the state government money. Put that bushfowl behind bars and let's know that at least we've caught a rat. But we can't continue year on year just discussing anti-corruption cases that we never see the final logical conclusion of.
I have a question for you on that one, and it's not my question. I was checking out the story with someone, and then we got talking. And the person said, when funds are recovered, when the EFCC or any anti-corruption agency recovers any fund, what happens to the money? And so I promised the person that I'm going to ask my analyst. So what happens to the money when funds are recovered?
Yes, if they check the papers, you will see in the last administration, I can't remember the EFCC chair, the younger one, I think he was around 40, 42. He was accused at some point of tampering with the money that the EFCC had recovered. And that's one. Two, also, he was accused of also appropriating or embezzling the assets recovery framework. And that's basically, sometimes they catch corrupt politicians and the assets they have sunk their money into, like their cars, their houses, special juries, etc. and co. Right? And those items are meant to be, after the court case, they're meant to be confiscated. Now, when they confiscate them, sometimes what happens is that they sell them. And what happened was EFCC was seeing, even last, there were allegations that the EFCC was mired in the cars confiscation and auction case, whereby they said that at the end of the day, eligible people were not getting it, but it was actually the EFCC officials that were putting in their own people to ensure that they're the ones that buy these cars at very cheap auctionable prices. So that money is supposed to be paid back into the federal government, depending on the court judgment. And if it's state government money, It's meant to go back. If you remember, I think there was a case of one state that during the Buhari administration, the court case, it came from abroad. When the money was given back, um, it went to the federal government, and the states took up the federal government and said, no, but that's actually, I think it was either Delta State or Bayelsa, that money, I think it was Alamisi, some corrupt fund that they found about it. So they said the money should come back to the state governments instead of going to the federal government. I think then the federal government was like, they didn't trust the state governor that if they put the money with the state government that he would re-embezzle it again. But basically, that's what happens with a lot of the money. Nigerians are yet to see the only time I think we even saw corrupt money going back to the coffers of the public was the Abacha loots, some of it that was recovered from Europe that they put back into the budget to support budget revenue that year.
Thank you for that detailed explanation. I'm sure the person is happy. Now let's take some messages before I take your thought on this story about the First Lady back in the special seat for women in Parliament. I have Daniel from Festec on WhatsApp who says, hello, Smooth. The EFCC case against the ex-governor is tiring. I don't believe there's any governor who didn't break the law when it came to handling the state resources. The stolen monies are what the governors now use to subvert our democratic process, and they buy their way into the Senate and presidency, like Obasa was accused last month. I don't expect anything to happen to Udom Emmanuel. I am tired. Bimbo says, the monies recovered are usually reluted. And Idima Putsa from Surulere says, how can we take the fight against corruption seriously when we only hear of arrests, but nothing comes out of it because APC's broom has swept it under the carpet, as APC doesn't have PACA in their logo. Where's Yaya Bello today? Joseph Meyer from Silver Estates, Ejigbo, Lagos says, good morning, freshly pressed. My ever-vibrant presenter, Radio Devoe, Oluwaseun, and analyst Devoe. Nigeria is the richest Black nation in the world, but when you have a system that celebrates corruption and impunity, we hear all sorts monumental fraud by every government officials from administration to administration. But still, God bless Nigeria. So, the Nigeria's First Lady, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, has thrown her support behind the push for special parliamentary seats for women, urging the National Assembly to swiftly pass the bill into law.
Yeah, this is one of the gender bills that got kicked out. I think this is the 10th Assembly and the 9th Assembly. There are about 6 or 7 of them. And in this case, the First Lady is saying that the one that speaks to seats reservation. Now, this bill is designed to, as some say, create gender equity. Equity in the sense that some level of intentional steps have to be taken by the law to give women a greater presence and visibility. So it's in 2 ways. One, they're saying because there are fewer women in the National Assembly and state assemblies, okay, that women should be given some level of upfront row seats so that they're not lost in the scheme of things. That's one. Two, another part of the bill speaks to the fact that if you remember globally, the push by the Sustainable Development Goals was that women should a minimum have about 30% of representation. Okay, the only time Nigeria achieved that was during the Goodluck Jonathan administration. That was the PEP administration, and thumbs up for DMP. That's Patience Jonathan, who actually pushed for that. And at that time, we had about 30% representation in our National Assembly. However, ever since then, it's completely fallen and sunk to the point that in this current administration, even with the ongoing Natasha Dwaha case and the Senate President, Akwa, there are 4 women in a Senate chamber of 109 individuals. And I think in the House of Reps, they're not more than 20. Now, this is very appalling given the fact that women represent 60% of the population in this country. Now, we don't have enough time to push and explain the more reasons why debasing women and not giving them pride of place is hurting us as a nation. The UN studies have shown that when you empower women, you quadruple your GDP. because women are known to not only be productive, but to manage. It's been proven. It's not an argument. So the question you want to understand is why are men, and when I say our men, I'm speaking to me and all the men who find themselves in politics, why do you feel that women are not added value? Why do you feel that women should not be given? The world has moved way beyond this. And I think Nigerian men, both on the traditional levels, being a patriarchic society, on the professional levels, should begin to take a good look at their wives, their sisters, their mothers, their daughters, their side chicks, and understand how important they are to society. They are equal members of society that actually make life better. It must be said, because what happens is most times, if you saw what they did in the Ninth Assembly, all the gender bills that came up, the men were laughing. They dismissed all of them with one fell sweep as if it meant nothing. I think we can do better, Nigeria. I think we could do better. This is not about the First Lady. Nigerian men need to actually stand up and give their women the right of place, not just in politics, but in our private sector endeavors and in society as a whole.
What gift it will be if it was passed in this month, this International Women's Month.
Yes, it is International Women's Month, but I don't see it happening because given the current crisis, I mean, you've heard all the views. It's just sad that our women are in these states.
Well, we can only hope for the best. Like yesterday, I think it was Chibuzo who said hope has become our best strategy or only strategy at this point. And I'll take this final message from Gilbert Musa from Festec, who says, on the proposed use of technology to beef up security at the National Correctional Service. From 1989, during the SAP riots in Benin, where inmates were freed, including those on death row, our prison system needs physical fortifications amongst technological means. Yes, there is that, but there is also the welfare of the people who are there, especially the ones who are awaiting trial. Thank you for being a part of Freshly Pressed for this Wednesday, the 5th of March, 2025. Tomorrow we go again from 7:30 till 8 right here on Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1. And you can catch the repeat of this on YouTube at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Thank you, Devoe.
Thank you.
All right, you know that it's Wednesday, and so that means at 8:15 is the time for us to talk sports in the locker room with Tega. Do join us.
The headlines, the stories, the news.
I'm guessing this man slept on, or maybe he went to pray.